Symptoms rarely vanish by improving sleep, nutrition, or exercise alone, but these habits raise the threshold before the nervous system tips into detachment. Sleep regularity is particularly critical. Episodes often flare after consecutive nights of poor rest. Exercise helps as well, not because it directly erases dissociation, but because it reduces stress hormones and strengthens pathways that support attention and bodily presence. Additions such as hydration, balanced nutrition, or limiting caffeine and alcohol provide stability that makes other interventions more effective. Without this baseline, more specialized treatments often fail to take hold. Medication does still have a role, though not usually as a treatment for dissociation itself. Clinical reviews show limited evidence for medications directly alleviating core symptoms. Instead, medications are often prescribed for comorbid issues like anxiety or depression. Since depersonalization often overlaps with both, this can help reduce the burden of secondary symptoms, making it easier to benefit from therapy. At the same time, researchers note that when dissociation is unrecognized in a broader clinical profile, patients may appear treatment-resistant. This underscores why accurate diagnosis and tailored care matter. Mislabeling symptoms as pure depression or panic disorder can lead to repeated trial and error with little success. Beyond these approaches, some labs have started investigating neurological interventions. Repetitive transcranial magnetic stimulation, RTMS, and transcranial direct current stimulation, TDCS, rely on altering brain activity through targeted stimulation. Early pilot trials have shown promise, particularly when applied to regions thought to be under or overactive in dissociation, yet the evidence is not firm. Sample sizes in these studies are small, and benefits can fade outside of controlled trials. As reviews emphasize, some brain stimulation studies, RTMS-TDCS, have shown promising results in very small trials, but larger randomized trials are still needed. These methods remain experimental, worth watching, but not ready for widespread use. Another experimental approach is neurofeedback, in which participants use real-time displays of brain activity to try to retrain networks toward more stable patterns. For dissociation, the hope is that reinforcing stronger connectivity between self-perception regions might reduce symptoms. So far, results are preliminary and limited to small exploratory studies. It represents one of several attempts to design novel interventions aligned with dissociation's neurobiology, but like brain stimulation, it cannot yet be considered a reliable treatment. Looking across these options highlights an important conclusion. Psychotherapy remains the most established and practical starting point. Tailored CBT, trauma-informed therapies, and grounding strategies integrated with lifestyle habits currently hold the strongest combination of clinical support and accessibility. Medications typically target accompanying anxiety or depression, while experimental neurological approaches serve as future possibilities rather than current standards. That balance matters for patients weighing what to try first. The most realistic plan usually blends several strategies: core therapy, supportive habits, and adjunctive treatments for comorbid symptoms. When customized, this mix can significantly improve day-to-day functioning, shorten episodes, and reduce fear of symptoms. While complete remission is rare, progress is meaningful. More time spent grounded, less time lost to fog. Research confirms what people report anecdotally. Living with depersonalization or derealization can become far more manageable with the right supports in place. Just as important, momentum in awareness has made tailored care more available. Clinics that once overlooked dissociation are now beginning to address it directly. Therapy manuals include sections on managing depersonalization and derealization, and more therapists are trained in trauma-informed frameworks that make them sensitive to dissociative experiences. For someone seeking help, the key point is that not all clinicians are equally familiar with these symptoms, so seeking out professionals with direct experience, trauma-informed therapists, or clinics that specialize in dissociation can make a substantial difference. Clinician familiarity not only reduces misdiagnosis, but also increases the odds of treatment success. It is essential to keep expectations balanced. The science is improving, but there are still clear limits. Much of the evidence rests on small samples and short-term studies. For some people, benefits from brain stimulation or EMDR are striking but incomplete. For others, even careful therapy yields only gradual results. It is better to think in terms of progress and management rather than binary cure. Even partial symptom reduction can mean preserved work routines, more steady relationships, and less intrusive fear. That quality of life relief matters just as much as the disappearance of symptoms. The broader context is encouraging. What once felt like a neglected condition is increasingly recognized across research, clinical practice, and public conversation. The treatment map may still have large gaps, but it no longer leaves patients without direction. Focused psychotherapy, integrated with healthy routines and adjusted for comorbid challenges, provides a set of tools that work across many cases. Around those core strategies, emerging methods continue to push the field toward more precise answers. Taken together, the picture is one of cautious optimism. There is no single cure, but there are ways forward. Patients and clinicians have better tools than they did a generation ago, and more are being explored. That progress puts people in a stronger position to move beyond fear and find stability, even if complete remission remains rare. And with this growing knowledge comes a practical question many people still face. How do you know when what you're experiencing has crossed the line from passing stress into something that requires professional support? When to seek professional help? How can you tell when a stretch of detachment is something you can manage on your own, and when it's a sign that professional input is needed? That question often weighs heavily on people who experience depersonalization or derealization. After all, everyone loses focus sometimes, drifting through a few pages of a book without remembering what you read, driving across town and realizing you barely noticed the trip. Those moments are ordinary lapses. They vanish quickly, and life feels solid again. But when detachment lingers, when it cuts into daily functioning or sparks intense fear, that's when it moves beyond passing distraction into a clinical concern that deserves expert support. The difference begins with duration and control. In ordinary daydreaming, the lapse is shallow and ends quickly with little effort. You snap back as soon as a noise or your own shifting attention interrupts. With disorder-level depersonalization or derealization, the detachment can stretch for hours or longer, and it no longer feels like a choice. It feels imposed, as if reality itself has slipped out of your reach. That loss of control, combined with persistence, marks one of the clearer dividing lines between fleeting inattention and a disorder. Still, duration alone doesn't determine the threshold. The greater signal lies in impact. Clinical concern arises when the episodes start interfering with everyday functioning. That might mean being unable to focus on school assignments, stumbling through work steps you normally remember easily, or withdrawing from conversations because every interaction feels artificial. People in this state often report that they can't connect with loved ones, that memories don't feel anchored as their own, or that hours disappear in fog. These experiences create impairment at a level that doesn't resolve by willpower alone, which is where clinical involvement becomes necessary. Another key marker is distress. Normal zoning out may feel odd but rarely causes panic. Disorder-level dissociation, by contrast, often arrives with intense anxiety. Thoughts spiral: am I losing control? Will I ever feel real again? That fear feeds the episode, prolonging its grip. Beyond the unreality itself, it's the cycle of panic and detachment together that erodes daily life. When fear itself becomes debilitating, disrupting sleep, pushing people to avoid social contact, or driving constant self-monitoring, that is a point where professional help is strongly advised. Persistence adds further weight. A single hazy day after a sleepless night is inconvenient but rarely worrisome. Continuous or near-daily detachment lasting weeks points to a different trajectory, one that no longer resolves with rest or reduced stress. Clinicians watch for that timeline. If symptoms extend beyond a few weeks and continue to interfere with life, evaluation becomes a practical and responsible step. Prolonging help-seeking only adds strain. In fact, reviews highlight a striking finding. The average diagnostic delay for depersonalization derealization disorder is 7 to 12 years. That wait reflects how often symptoms are misunderstood or minimized, which means many people endure prolonged suffering unnecessarily. Seeking help earlier interrupts that pattern and creates more space for improvement. Relationships provide another signal. Detachment doesn't only affect the individual, it reaches outward. Friends and family may notice a person seeming distracted, emotionally flat, or disconnected. Some people withdraw not because they want distance, but because interactions themselves feel staged or hollow. This erosion of closeness is not typical of everyday stress. It is a symptom of depersonalization or derealization, and when it reaches this point, professional involvement is critical for protecting social connection as well as mental health. The role of professional help is not to instantly cure, but to give structure and perspective. One of the most significant shifts comes simply from having language for the experience. Many who first describe symptoms imagine that they are going crazy or developing psychosis. Clinicians can explain that dissociation is distinct from psychotic disorders, that it has specific patterns, and that effective coping strategies exist. This knowledge alone can reduce the extra layer of anxiety that worsens symptoms. Without it, people often spiral in silence, believing their condition to be rare, untreatable, or shameful. So how do you know when to move from self-monitoring to making an appointment? One clear method is to ask yourself a few grounding questions. Are the symptoms lasting beyond a few weeks with little sign of easing? Are they disrupting work, studies, or relationships in a way you cannot ignore? Do they trigger so much anxiety or panic that daily routines feel unsafe or impossible? Do you find yourself unable to ground or recover without help once an episode begins? If the answer to any of these is yes, it is time to consider an evaluation. This checklist gives you a practical set of indicators rather than leaving the threshold vague. Brief detachment that fades quickly, usually harmless. Weeks of repeated detachment, growing fear or disruption to basic functioning. That is a point where professional guidance can make a clear difference. Rather than taking it as a sign of failure, think of it as the same principle you would use for any health concern. If a symptom persists and affects daily life, it warrants skilled support. Importantly, people rarely regret seeking help early, but they often regret waiting. Early professional input shortens the cycle. It brings reassurance before panic patterns solidify. It introduces coping strategies before detachment becomes entrenched, and it gives space to adjust habits and environments to prevent triggers accumulating. Each of those factors can make the difference between living in cycles of fear for years and learning to manage symptoms in months. For those worried about what professional help actually involves, it can be reassuring to know it often begins simply. Assessments typically include conversations about how often episodes occur, how long they last, what triggers you've noticed, and how they affect day-to-day life. Treatments frequently start with education, coping strategies, and therapy sessions designed to build grounding skills, not invasive procedures or heavy medications. Knowing this reduces hesitation. The first step is usually a dialogue, not a drastic intervention. Recognizing where ordinary dissociation ends and disorder-level episodes begin is crucial. Our minds depend on occasional temporary detachment. It prevents overload in boring meetings or repetitive routines. But when that same mechanism starts hijacking days, undermining relationships, or carrying constant panic along with unreality, it's no longer benign. It's a signal that the nervous system is stretched beyond what self-management alone can handle. The bottom line is that depersonalization or derealization lasting more than a few weeks, interfering significantly with daily functioning, or causing intense distress is not something to ignore. Professional support is not a last resort. It's a practical step toward clarity, stability, and tools for regaining presence. And every year lost before seeking help prolongs the cycle unnecessarily, given what evidence now confirms about long delays in diagnosis and treatment. Knowing when to seek help reframes the question away from "is this serious enough?" and toward "is this interfering with my ability to live steadily?" That reframing relieves the pressure of guessing, turning it into an actionable choice. And once you cross that threshold, support becomes possible. From therapy plans and grounding techniques to reassurance that the condition is recognized, real, and manageable. This points to a deeper perspective. Once professional care is in place, the work isn't only about managing symptoms. It's also about shifting how you interpret them. If episodes of detachment feel terrifying because they seem like signs of losing your mind, fear will intensify them. But if they're understood as nervous system reactions, strange yet explainable, the experience changes. And it is at this level, where meaning and fear intersect, that the next step forward takes shape. Reframing the experience without fear. What if the strange disconnection you feel, your body seeming foreign, or the world looking dreamlike, weren't signs of going insane at all? What if they were signals that your nervous system has tipped past its comfort zone, leaning on a primitive protection reflex? This shift in perspective is what reframing offers. Instead of seeing depersonalization or derealization as proof of collapse, you can view them as clumsy safety mechanisms. That difference changes not only the emotional weight of an episode, but also how you respond in the moment. Fear is usually the first barrier against reframing. As soon as unreality sets in, panic races forward. Thoughts loop: what if I never return to normal? What if this means I'm broken? What if I'll always feel this way? Those catastrophic interpretations intensify stress, and stress strengthens dissociation. Instead of easing, detached states grow heavier. This is why clinical models describe dissociation as both a stress response and an anxiety feedback loop. Reframing interrupts this by lowering catastrophic interpretations. That, in turn, reduces the body's stress arousal, breaking the cycle that fuels symptoms. Understanding that pattern already gives back a measure of control. The sensations are not limitless freefalls. They are loops, predictable ones. A stressful overload triggers detachment. Fear of the detachment triggers more stress. The stress amplifies detachment further. Knowing that makes the experience less mysterious. And once symptoms are recognized as processes instead of terrors, a path toward management becomes visible. Normalization is pivotal here. The first time many people feel depersonalization or derealization, they have no name for it. The experience feels like a private failure, something so strange it must be rare. But epidemiology shows otherwise. Fleeting dissociation is common, and a clinical disorder affects about 1% of the population. Recognizing that your symptoms fit an established pattern shifts perspective from personal catastrophe to shared physiological response. Millions of others report the same sensations. That context stops isolation from magnifying fear. Knowledge adds another layer of relief, understanding why the brain detaches. Dissociation is the nervous system's version of a safety overreaction, much like sneezing when dust irritates your sinuses. You don't think you've lost your sanity when you sneeze, you recognize it as the body's reflex overshooting the need. Dissociation can be reframed the same way. It is the mind's reflex to protect against overload, activated to a degree that becomes disruptive. Naming it as protection gone overboard undercuts shame and strengthens self-compassion. With fear softened, tools regain value. Imagine experiencing unreality, but instead of spiraling into terror, you can label it. This is my nervous system protecting me. I've felt this before. I can step into my grounding routine. In that moment, exercises like paced breathing, sensory grounding, or oriented movement stop being desperate lunges at normality. They become cues guiding you back into presence. From the same sensations, two stories unfold: helplessness if viewed as proof of collapse, or steady re-anchoring if recognized as a protective reflex. Cognitive strategies make this practical. In CBT-informed protocols, reappraisal scripts are used during episodes. A simple, repeatable phrase can shift the nervous system. This is a protective response. I can use grounding now. This will pass. Saying it out loud or silently reminds you that the sensations are temporary, patterned, and survivable. Studies show that this kind of reframing reduces catastrophic thinking, which lowers anxious arousal and gently calms dissociation itself. Instead of fueling panic, your words become part of the intervention. Imagery also helps soften fear. Picture dissociation as a poorly trained security guard. At the hint of trouble, the guard rushes in, blocking access to emotions so you don't get overwhelmed. The guard means well but overreacts, forcing you back even when danger is minor. When you interpret episodes through this lens, your relationship to them changes. You stop treating them as betrayals of your mind and more as overzealous efforts at safety. You don't need to hate the guard, you need to guide them, steady them, and remind them when the alarm isn't real. That metaphor reduces the sense of internal conflict. The benefits become cumulative. Each episode handled without catastrophic fear weakens the loop between stress and detachment. Each successful use of a grounding cue proves to you that return is possible. Over time, unreality still appears, but terror no longer inflates it. Episodes go from overwhelming to inconvenient, from chaos to challenge. This trajectory doesn't remove symptoms instantly, but it changes their significance. They are no longer evidence of breakdown, they are signals of stress thresholds, and signals can be read, managed, and softened. Reframing provides a bridge not only within individuals, but also between individuals and communities. Talking openly about dissociation reduces stigma. When people hear that others have lived through the same sensations, the experience loses its alien strangeness. Social awareness creates scaffolding around symptoms. They stop being a secret abnormality and become part of the understood repertoire of human responses to stress. That cultural reframing helps individuals trust that their experiences belong within a wider map of psychology. The essential point is agency. Reframing breaks the chain where symptoms trigger fear, fear drives stress, and stress worsens symptoms. By softening catastrophic interpretations and naming dissociation as protection instead of destruction, you reinsert choice into the process.